Tonight, New York State reeling from the largest coronavirus outbreak in the country. The number of cases, at least 140 and climbing. The nation's busiest transportation hub taking another hit.
There are now more than 1,000 cases in 38 states and Washington, D.C. Among the latest, 3 TSA workers at a California airport tested positive.
At this hospital on Australia's Gold Coast, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson are being kept in isolation after announcing Wednesday they have the coronavirus. The couple posting this photo on Instagram saying, "I want to thank everyone here down under who are taking such good care of us. Remember, despite all the current events, there's no crying in baseball." That reference, of course, to his famous line from the classic movie A League of Their Own.
There's no crying in baseball!
Hanks has been down under in pre-production for his upcoming biopic about Elvis Presley and taking selfies with fans. Warner Brothers, the film studio, says it's working with health agencies to identify and contact anyone who may have come into contact with Hanks. Officials believe the couple contracted the virus outside Australia and say the incubation period can last up to 2 weeks.
People who have come in close contact with Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson will now need to self-isolate and quarantine.
Just last Saturday, the couple was spotted sightseeing near Bondi Beach with their 24-year-old son, Truman. No word on whether he's been tested for the virus. That night, Wilson posted these photos from the Sydney Opera House, where she performed her music in a 200-seat auditorium. On Monday, she appeared on Australia's morning program Today Extra, where the show's host says she seemed fine.
She didn't seem to have any symptoms of anything. She actually made a joke coming into the studio saying we shouldn't shake hands, we should bump elbows. So we bumped elbows.
Still, some of the show's staffers have been tested and asked to self-quarantine. Days before, Wilson had attended this cancer benefit in Beverly Hills, flanked by A-listers like Nick Jonas, Tom Ford, and Renee Zellweger. We reached out to their reps, but didn't hear back.
I think I had type 2 diabetes based on what I ate when I was 13 years old.
In January, Hanks talked about being a type 2 diabetic with Savannah, a disease that puts him at greater risk for coronavirus complications, according to the CDC. On Wednesday, the couple's son, Chet, spoke out about his parents' condition.
I just got off the phone with them. They both are fine. They're not even that sick. They're not worried about it. They're not tripping, but they're going through the necessary health precautions.
Another hit. Physician's assistant James Kai says he got the virus after attending a medical conference near Times Square. He's 32 with no underlying conditions.
They are surprised it can be turned out that bad so quickly, and I'm so young. I don't drink, I don't smoke.
Kai says his health is deteriorating. He's hospitalized in New Jersey.
Half of my lung is already pneumonia, not working, only half. So I don't know how much longer I have.
Rick Cotton, the executive director of the Port Authority, now the state's first public official to test positive. The agency saying he's asymptomatic and has self-quarantined at his home. A 7-year-old girl in the Bronx also testing positive, the youngest known case in the U.S., said to be doing well with her family. But New York's most volatile flare of community spread is in Westchester County, with the majority of the state's cases.
This is the hot spot, one of the hot spots nationally.
Officials say dozens of cases trace back to one man, a sickened attorney named Lawrence Garbus, whose case was complicated by a previous condition. His wife, who is also infected along with their 2 children, saying the rest of the family is in good condition and that her husband remains critical, but she is very hopeful of his full recovery. That case resulting in a wave of school closures throughout the county. Multiple universities in the state, including Columbia, Hofstra, and Fordham, also canceling classes. New York City's mayor suggesting dramatic steps to keep the elderly safe.
Even if you love your grandchildren, for example, you don't want to go see your grandchildren if they happen to be sick, even with a common cold. You just don't want to do it.
In Washington, D.C., several hundred people ordered to self-quarantine after some received communion from Reverend Timothy Cole, the leader of a prominent Episcopal church who became the city's first confirmed case. Hard-hit Washington state now has infections in at least 3 different nursing homes. It's the deadly epicenter, with at least 22 fatalities, 3 more announced today from that Life Care nursing facility.
We've had patients who, within an hour's time, show no symptoms to going to acute symptoms and being transferred to the hospital. And we've had patients die relatively quickly.
This morning, emergency measures in New York. The state's governor deploying the National Guard to New Rochelle, a suburb of New York City, in an effort to contain a coronavirus outbreak there. Residents within a 1-mile radius required to stay within the area for a 2-week period.
It is a dramatic action, but it is the largest cluster in the country, and this is literally a matter of life and death.
As new cases spread nationwide, health officials are warning all Americans to be prepared.
You have to start taking seriously what you can do now, that if and when the infections will come, and they will come, sorry to say, sad to say, they will.
Earlier, President Trump appeared to contradict that, downplaying the threat.
And we're prepared, and we're doing a great job with it, and it will go away.
But in Washington state, where the most deaths have occurred, the governor is warning without action, things could rapidly escalate.
In 7 or 8 weeks, there could be 64,000 people infected in the state of Washington if we don't somehow slow down this epidemic. And the next week it'd be 120,000, and the next week it'd be 250,000.
Meanwhile, in California, passengers are still slowly disembarking the Grand Princess cruise ship, then traveling by plane and by bus to military bases where they'll be held in quarantine for 2 weeks. The process expected to take days. On the campaign trail, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders both canceled primary night rallies in Ohio. This Sunday, they'll square off in the first debate in the 2020 cycle without an audience. On the education front, a growing number of school districts are closed for several weeks, while many major universities are suspending in-person classes. Harvard, among the latest, telling students to pack up their dorms and head home.
I live in California, so I have to figure out how to get my things in storage.
And just across the river in Boston, all eyes are on the city's world-famous marathon next month. New York City has already called off its half marathon that was supposed to take place Sunday. Ivy League schools have canceled all of their men and women's basketball tournaments. But for now, the NCAA is still planning to allow fans to attend March Madness games. The fear over the disease even hitting the food industry. MGM Resorts temporarily closing buffets at restaurants across Las Vegas. And Ben & Jerry's postponing their popular Free Cone Day for the first time in 40 years.
631 people. There have now been more than 10,000 people infected with the virus in Italy.
Rome, doing as the Romans do means not doing much at all. Under rules announced late last night, across Italy, only food stores and pharmacies will stay open, and so far, few reports of stockpiling. In the capital, streets are mostly empty, tourist spots are closed, and Rome's famous restaurants now shuttered.
As of last night, all shops, cafes, restaurants, bars, all forced to close. These restaurants are normally packed with people, but now Italians are going to have to cook for themselves.
You're allowed to walk around, even go to work if it's necessary, but the government is urging a limit to most activity.
The situation started to feel a lot more tense, a lot more real. People are definitely limiting their travel outside of their homes. We're staying home a lot more.
Authorities canceling schools, church services and events, and police telling people to stand at least 3 feet apart. Violators could face fines, even a few months in jail.
Have you imprisoned anyone so far?
No. No, because the people are answering well to this crisis.
Despite the tough tactics, the virus is still spreading. Italy has nearly 12,500 cases, the second most after China. Yesterday, the death toll spiked to 827 dead, but not everyone is worried.
You guys aren't supposed to be this close.
I know, but we're like always this close.
We probably got it.
We'll get it together.
While others see it as a challenge to overcome.
She has stage 4 cancer, and she's been through chemotherapy, but you have to live, and you can't let virus or the flu stop you.
UK households and businesses bridge across the economic disruption caused by COVID-19. These measures will help keep firms in business and people in jobs, and they will prevent a temporary disruption from causing longer-lasting economic harm.
For some, old worldly methods of sending supplies to a cut-off town, Tino delivering face masks to his sister stuck inside. She's grateful they've run out there. We were sent pictures from a pharmacy in Codogno serving anxious queues.
Buongiorno Andrea.
Buongiorno Marco, come stai?
And the man who filmed them told us of the growing sense of fear.
Ci sentiamo un po'.
We feel a bit abandoned. The news we get comes through WhatsApp or Facebook. There's a lot of false rumors around. E tra la gente c'è il panico? Are people panicked?
Tra la gente...
Yes, people are panicking. Some convince themselves it will blow over. Others are worried and can't sleep.
In nearby Milan, the cathedral that's withstood 500 years is closed. Schools and universities are shut off. And in supermarkets, panic is spreading quicker than the virus. And it, too, is hard to stem. Mark Lowen, BBC News, Northern Italy.
Fear has driven thousands in Daegu into a panic-buying frenzy. They queued for hours, even sprinting to the back of the line in the hope of getting a face mask. But some had to leave empty-handed.
This is the first time we've been out the house in 3 days, and we couldn't buy more masks.
Elsewhere, it's eerily quiet. Only a few stall holders have decided to open.
I've been working in this market for 40 years, but I've never seen anything like this.
Most residents have decided to stay indoors as officials race to find those who've been infected. There are no travel restrictions in place for now. As you drive through the worst affected areas, the local government sends alerts detailing virus hotspots to avoid.
But that's the kind of thing another one. Oh, we got another one coming?
Each message has detailed notes of confirmed cases nearby. Meanwhile, medics on the front line battle on. Doctors sent us these images to show us the kind of precautions they're taking while treating hundreds of patients. In North Korea, they claim to have no cases of coronavirus after they sealed off their border with China in January. All 380 foreigners in the country have been quarantined. Experts fear an outbreak in this secretive state, where millions are malnourished, could be catastrophic. Back in the south, there is a sense of urgency. Officials say the next few days will be crucial if they're to prevent this outbreak becoming an epidemic. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Daegu.
China is going all out to contain the virus. This is an infection control squad in training. But there are still questions over its early response and the silencing of medics who tried to raise the alarm. The public anger hasn't gone away. Here, a man films as doctors attend to his mother, but they can't save her. Later, he films as a funeral car arrives. The government thinks we're foolish. They say it's a natural disaster, he tells me. But it's actually caused by humans. If they'd warned us in time, he asks, would so many people die? The World Health Organization, though, was full of praise for the actions China has taken.
China has rolled out probably the most ambitious and I would say agile and aggressive disease containment effort in history.
To what extent do you think cover-up and censorship played a role in allowing this virus to accelerate at the rate it did?
I don't know. Frankly, didn't look at that. I'm just being completely honest. But what worries me most is, has the rest of the world learned the lesson of speed?
Once China had woken up to the danger, that speed, the rapid quarantining of cities and the shutting down of the economy, appears to have worked and is now being held up.